And there's been, I think, a few studies to say that most people don't like modernism. It makes sense, like it's just flat and plain. But I think right now, architects have a very different attitude towards how cities should look and how buildings should be built. So this is like an arty guy who works at Tate Modern sort of talking about brutalism, right?
National Theatre, completed in 1976. Prince Charles thought it looked like a nuclear power station. What Charles meant was that it was an industrial-looking building, something that was rather bleak and uncompromising, something that didn't look like a theatre. But that was the point.
That was the point. This is how arty people think, especially, I'm going to say, like kind of middle class, upper class. They will conceptualize everything, and they can make the argument that brutalism's meant to make you feel something, and if that's uncomfort, then that's the point, because it's art. But there's a difference in the art of, say, like architecture, which is an art form, and then the art of like a film or music. There are people that make music that is deliberately like scary, you know, like Scar-Lord screams in your ears or whatever. With music, you can click pause. With a film, you finish watching it, you can forget about the film, or you can just turn it off, right? With architecture, you can't do that. Architecture is permanent. And I think the idea of making like a movement in architecture to make sort of uncomfortable buildings like brutalism is just, it's inhuman, and it doesn't consider the purpose of what the art of architecture is.
I don't know who designs them. I don't know who they design them for, or if they think that we feel or think any differently than they do. There must be reasons why these architects build these flats in this design and in this hard barrack-looking way, because I'm sure they couldn't possibly like the structure and the outlook of them themselves.
People at the time were saying this. They're like, they don't like it. But architects have this different attitude, right? Whenever I was watching so many of these interviews with these architects, and they talk about like sort of making a new world and stuff. Right? These two people created one of the ugliest estates. So the Smithson's architecture, fuck me, Robin Hood Estates, that was it, which was one of the most like deprived, ugly, this is Robin Hood Estates, and people hated this. But listen to these people talk, right? And just listen out for like the disconnect.
Society at the moment asks architects to build these new homes for them. But, I mean, this may be really stupid. We may have to rethink the whole thing.
Fuck me, she was aware straight away. She literally said, this might be stupid. Building this might be a bad idea, we might have to rethink it. She fucking said it in the first 10 seconds. And no one took that as like a, you know, a warning sign. Modern socialist-inspired architects consider beauty to be bourgeois and reactionary and fascist. I want to make a point here, because I hear this a lot. I get this comment quite a bit when I complain about architecture, and they complain just about socialists, right? They say, oh, these are the sort of crazy socialists that picture this new world. I think certainly at some periods in history that was true. I think there was an element of this sort of socialist thing. But I think when you point the finger just at socialists on this, you are missing the very obvious thing. But to ignore how capitalism took modernism and brutalism, and this is where really, I think it went really wrong. So where they were making these buildings that were all very similar, using cheap materials, why? So that we can afford to do more. Don't use expensive ornate stuff because that's showy and flashy and that shows class difference. But if we make it all out of concrete, it's all the same, right? So these kind of socialist attitudes, the capitalists, and this is the nature of how capitalism works, any movement, capitalism will swallow it, commodify it, and distill it down to the most profitable, beneficial version of it. Capitalists look at this and they go, there's this demand, there's this sort of like new attitude toward building. We don't have to do this anymore. We can make a fucking Soviet shit tip and people will be okay with that. So we've now effectively completely, not even half, like completely brought the price down on making buildings now. Now society's okay with this. The capitalists go, oh, that's really handy because we can fucking make these for cheap and we can make shitloads of them and we can make tons of profit. When you jump forward to the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, 2020, where we still make ugly fucking buildings that look like this, we still do it. Why? Because these lefties gave the capitalists a fucking free ticket. They're now allowed to do this. And a capitalist will always want to do things for the cheapest version, the highest profit margin they can possibly do, as long as it sells, and it will sell. In a housing crisis, no one's thinking about how beautiful their room looks. They just want to have a roof on their head.